I'm not letting myself play the new Uncharted game until I film this video. Hi everyone, my name is Carly and I am here bringing you my August wrap up today. I read a total of 7 books this month, which is more than I actually thought it was going to. And I put this off because I thought I was going to finish an 8th book. That didn't happen, but it's whatever. It was a great reading month. It was kind of weird because it was like the books I liked, I really liked, and the books I didn't like, I really didn't like. So it's very like, there was not much of a middle ground. And also during the month of August, I started a readathon, so I will touch on the books that I have finished so far for that readathon, but once the readathon is officially over, I will be making a wrap up and going more in depth of my thoughts on those books. So without further ado, I'm just gonna get started. So for the first 2 weeks of August, I was on vacation, and this was the book's first book I finished on vacation, and in the month of August was Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I ended up giving this like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really loved it. I like so much more than I thought I would. Like, yeah, I really liked it, and I have the next 2 books in this series, and I cannot wait to get to them. This follows our group of characters as they try to overthrow this empire that's been in power for like 1,000 years. It was just really interesting, the kind of political intrigue and the spyiness of it, I guess. As some people, as you hear, at least as I heard with this book, that the magic system was really interesting, which it was, though I think, I will admit that I did have to kind of do a little Google researching on it to make more sense of it. But once I got it, and I really enjoyed it. I loved all the characters. One thing I will say is that someone did point out to me that the middle part kind of got boring for them, which I could totally see how someone would think that, but I wasn't particularly bored with that middle part. I still wanted to read it. I still could not put this book down. Loved it so much. Highly recommend. Next book I read in this month was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. I don't know. But I have had this book for years, as long as I can remember. And I've tried to read it a couple times before, but for some reason something happens where I get halfway through and then I put it down and never pick it up, and by the time I try to pick it up, I can't remember anything that happens. So I finally decided I wanted to read it, especially with the trailer for the new movie having just been released last month or something like that. I liked it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think maybe such the time period that it was written, I got kind of annoyed with Meg and her constant crying. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. It was a fun read. It follows our 3 main characters as they kind of get transported to these different worlds in their attempt to save Meg and her brother Charles Wallace is their dad, as they try to save their dad. Like I said, I enjoyed it. It was a very fun, easy, kind of sci-fi adventure. And it was fun, and it made me more excited for the movie. So, at least I'll be able to watch the movie and understand what's going on. The next 2 books were the 2 books I honestly didn't really like this year, and I'm just going to preface this by saying these are my opinions, and if you enjoyed these books, because I understand that they are very popular, it is okay if you enjoy these books. I personally did not enjoy them. If you just want to skip over the next 2 reviews, go for it. But the 3rd book I read this month was Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and I picked this up. I was actually wanted to read this more than I wanted to read Fangirl, but I wanted to read Fangirl before I read this, even though there's really not much correlation between the 2. You can read them in whatever order you want to. And I mean, I made a whole book talk about it, but I loved Fangirl. I thought it was so well written. I loved the characters and everything. I loved it. This book, on the other hand, I did not like. It follows Simon Snow and his roommate Baz as they try to defeat some evil, I guess, and then fall in love or something or another. I'm not 100% sure. I ended up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I was so disappointed in this. I just didn't think the writing really developed the characters, and the way this is written, it's almost like this is the 8th book in a series, so I felt like a lot of character development and relationships, I was completely just supposed to believe that they were already there, and I didn't feel like I got really any character development in terms of the characters themselves and within each other, which was really disappointing. I guess kind of a spoiler, obviously Simon and Baz get together, but I felt like that relationship was so, there was no reason for the two of them to like each other and get together, from like my understanding, was that like they hated each other. This is spoiler talk, so if you don't want to hear, just skip forward a little bit. But by the time Baz shows up, it's like his first thing is like, and then I was in love with Simon Snow. But like everything leading up to that point we've seen from Simon's point of view, and it's like Simon is sitting there going, I hate Baz, I hate Baz, Baz is a horrible person, he's gonna kill me. We've had this long, like there was no, like we didn't see any build up to Baz being like, I love Simon Snow. And then suddenly Simon is like a-okay with working with Baz, which again made no sense, because once again all we saw was Simon going, I hate Baz and I've always hated Baz because of this, this, and this. And then when they finally kissed, obviously Baz was like so head over heels in love with Simon, which didn't make any sense. And then when they kissed, Simon was like, oh, I didn't know if I wanted to kiss him because I loved him, or if I was trying to kiss him just to shut him up. And like, I didn't even think I liked Baz like this. Am I gay? And it was just like, there was no build up for Simon to suddenly be liking Baz, which was really disappointing, as I keep saying. And then like the writing, it's all told in first person, but it switches perspectives. So a lot of times, especially towards the end, where you're getting multiple characters' point of view within the same chapter, it honestly got very confusing for me, because you're like reading along, because it's a very fast-paced book. I read through it pretty quickly. But like, and then you're reading from Baz's point of view, and then all of a sudden you're reading from like Penelope's, and then Simon's, and it was all done in first person. And it didn't really feel like there was any tonal shift, so it got kind of confusing as to which character I was reading. And already I'm not a huge fan of first person. I do read, I think, quite a bit of it, but it's not my favorite point of view to read. So that was something that I found very disappointing. It was very disappointing considering how much I loved Fangirl. I hated the feeling of like I was just reading the 8th book in a series without reading the other 7 books. It just had that feeling to it, and I was not a fan. The next book I read this month was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Going into this, I kind of already had the idea that it wasn't gonna be my absolute favorite, but I thought I might have fun with it. I ended up giving this a 1.5 out of 5 stars. It's probably more of a 1 out of 5 star books for me. Again, we're gonna get into some spoilery talk here. Can we just talk about how like unrealistic, how Freya kills the wolf, and then Tamlin comes to her and is like, a life for a life. Or, you know, you can come live with me, not as my prisoner. It's fine, whatever, we're gonna give you a great life. Like, I mean, obviously that gets cleared up by the end of the book, but like, as soon as I read that, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you come barging in, knocking down her door, going, you killed my friend, therefore I have to kill you. Or, you come live with me in my palace, not as my prisoner. Like, what? 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 That was kind of, once I reached that part, that was my kind of first, and like, that's when I was first like, oh, I'm not gonna like this. No, am I? Feyre was annoying as heck as a character. Tamlin was just like, I love Noodle. I will admit that some of the like descriptions of the scenery in this made me just picture this really beautiful area. And Lucian was better character-wise. Yeah, storytelling is all fine and dandy. I'm wondering how she filled up like 300 pages, but whatever. And then Feyre goes home, and then when she comes back to the fairy world or whatever, it's like that part from then on, it's like total tonal shift from the whole rest of the book, which is very kind of jarring. Like, it's like you have one book and then another book. It was weird. Another thing I took issue with this book was that there are some kind of rapey, non-consensual scenes that were played off as romantic, which was not okay. One of those being that like weird festival scene, I think in the middle of the book or whatever, when it made no sense that the two of them were having feelings for each other, and then he was kind of, Tamlin saw Feyre like that night and was like, oh, you snuck out when we told you not to, and I could have pretty much raped you. And she was all like, ooh, I love him now. And it was like, no? no. And then at the end, again, I mean, like I said, I'm doing spoiler talk, but at the end, when Ryson is like drugging her drink and like having her wear these revealing clothes and like taking her out to the fairy parties to show her off, and all she does is she pretty much gets fairy roofied and inappropriately touched by Ryson, but not inappropriately, I guess, because like he wouldn't have sex with her without her consent or whatever. I don't know. I was very uncomfortable reading those scenes, and then at the end of it, it's all played off as like, oh, I was doing it to save you from the bad guy. And then she's all of a sudden like, ooh, maybe I like him. And it was like, that was really creepy, Sarah J. Maas. That was really creepy and not okay. And the fact that those scenes were played off as like romantic really made me uncomfortable, which made this, that's why it made it the 1-star review. I mean, I did not like the story, but like these just rapey, non-consensual scenes that were played off as romantic is not okay. It's not. Like, that's not romantic at all. That's creepy. And not okay to do. Like, at all. Don't do that. At all. No. Alright, now we're getting to the books that I have read for the Reading Quest readathon that I am doing. You can watch my TBR later. I, again, will not be getting into super great detail like I did with the other ones, but I will when I make my Reading Quest wrap up. The next one I read in August, and the first for the readathon, was Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I really liked it. Give it 3 out of 5 stars. I'm excited to read more Neil Gaiman. Maybe something more on the adult side, because that's just what I've been wanting to read more. The next one was Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. Really, really like this. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And it put me in a bit of a book hangover. And finally, the last book I finished in the month of August was Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. And I liked it. Gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And that is all that I read in the month of August. I'm actually really surprised. Like I said, I read 7 books, and I'm really surprised because 4 of those books are like, no, there's only 2 books in there that are like 100 pages. Wrinkle of Time and Coraline. The other ones were all like over 400 pages, and I read 5 over 400 word book, 400 over 400 pages books. Something's making sense now. But yeah, it's a great reading month for me, and I'm pretty happy with all I read. Though I will makes me laugh about how drastic my opinions on some of these books were. Like, I really, really liked it, or I really, really hated it. Have you read any of those? Did you have a good reading month? I mean, obviously you did, because you probably read something. So, that's a great reading month. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. If you liked what you saw, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys again with another video soon. Bye.